And let's bring now our weekly Tuesday panel. Sky News hosts Paul Murray and Liz Storer. Welcome to you both.
Hello.
Now, let's start with what I spoke about in my editorial tonight, the Prime Minister's very clear lack of leadership when it comes to the explosion in anti-Semitism that we're seeing in Australia. I mean, we're seeing this globally. We had those horrifying scenes at Dagestan Airport and hotels in Russia, Paul. But in Australia, the community is terrified. There is massive anti-Semitism. He hasn't held a press conference. He hasn't done anything about it.
Yeah, certainly also when I was noticing in your editorial, as always, fascinating to watch, was these 6 former Prime Ministers can't agree on anything, right? Literally cannot agree on anything, but it represents our national leadership from 1996 all the way until literally 2022. They never sign anything. The only time you'll ever get them in the same place is, frankly, at the funeral of a former Prime Minister. The decision that they took is the ultimate way of showing that Albo's in the wrong spot, of showing that Albo has not said the right things, particularly about anti-Semitism and what is happening in the fear in those communities, because clearly Malcolm Turnbull is the author of it. Of course, Wentworth, significant population. He was clear about what that issue was, informed, of course, by not just a worldview, but also Josh Frydenberg about the need for that statement to be made. When asked about it today, as you played the grab, rather than saying completely endorse what they say, pick a couple of lines from the statement and double down, he finds a way around the statement. I don't know why. I honestly don't know why. Now, I know that there's an opinion piece that's in the Sydney Morning Herald today that suggests one of the problems Joe Biden may well have in part of his re-election is that the extreme left of his party does not like his support for Israel and may well sit out the next election, and that would be a significant enough population to potentially deny a re-election for Biden. Is that what Albo's playing with here? But I wouldn't think that that's statistically big enough. Instead, it's a worldview, and it's a worldview that you've been showing he's always had. And while he may change many things on his way to the Lodge, I don't think he's changed his view on this.
Liz, if what Paul suggests is right, if Albanese is putting politics and votes in communities in Western Sydney above what is right, above standing up for anti-Semitism, that's disgusting.
Absolutely. This guy's an utter shill. And we've seen this from our premiers also. All lip service, no strong action. We've had massive marches this weekend, most recently in Sydney, yelling Allahu Akbar, talking about we stand with you, Palestine, no matter what you do. The people saying that, inciting this kind of hatred, they know what happened on the 7th. So when I say I stand with you, Palestine, no matter what you do, you're talking about the rape, the mutilation, the murder, the ripping unborn babies out of their mothers' stomachs. You stand with that? We've yet to see any strong display of action from our premiers or our Prime Minister on this massive, we can't really call it a rise in anti-Semitism because obviously it's been there all along.
Well, but it's now
simmering underneath the surface. Yeah, and it's taken this to see it come to the fore. And absolutely nothing but lip service from our leaders. It's utterly disgusting.
Sorry, Liz, didn't mean to interrupt. I apologise. You never do it to me, so I'll never do it to you. I know the rules around here.
Go ahead, Paul. Now, we want to hear you.
The issue, though, is that what's fascinating to see here is, and we've been talking about this a bit at 9 o'clock, right, which is about what is different. So you see today Netanyahu talking about there was no retreat after Pearl Harbor, no retreat after 9/11. And I think what's something worth considering in the conversation, right, and it's not whataboutism and all the rest of it, right, is that Western countries have not been able to win wars the way they used to when there weren't any cameras around. Why? Because the appetite that the media or the wider public has for civilian casualties, it's not there, right?
Well, so ISIL was in recent time. The fight against, ISIS in Mosul, that was in recent times. There were mobile phones then. Well, Afghanistan, 46,000, I think, civilians killed.
100%, yeah. But I'm saying the early days in 2001 of what happened in Afghanistan was pre-smartphone, right? You've got this scenario and you've got in Hamas people who are weaponising the images of civilian casualties, knowing
that's why they won't let the civilians leave.
Correct.
That's why they
I'm not sitting here whataboutism. I'm not finding a way. I'm just saying is that what makes not the task difficult, but what our leaders have to muscle up against is to say, OK, I'm going to maintain the moral clarity that I had when there weren't the cameras there, when there was the sense of right and wrong, because the reality is if they're going to start to sort of move to wherever Twitter goes on any one day, they're going to provide piss-weak statements like the one that Albo did.
But I think the 6 former Prime Ministers got that balance beautifully. They express sorrow, and we all feel sorrow. There is no one who doesn't feel sorrow for any mother who loses her children, no matter what their nationality or background. They got that right by saying, this is Hamas doing it. This is Hamas who sparked this war, who stopped their own civilians from leaving, who used them as human shields. I mean, they literally put their operations under major hospitals.
Well, and if the left wants to create a sense of pressure in that area, where's the conversation about Egypt? Where's the conversation about Egypt opening the southern gate?
The 19 Arab countries surrounding
creating
it, the 52 majority Muslim countries won't take a single Gazan. What's going on here? Why aren't they directing their eye where it belongs? You mentioned Dagestan. At least in Russia, they saw 80 arrests. Now, if you look at the lynch mob that ran through that airport, their intention was very clear. I think we would have seen another October 7th right there and then had those people disembarked from the plane. But Russia took some action. We haven't seen a single arrest that we're made aware of. No show of action, nothing but lip service. It's got to stop, because what that does is tell people of that persuasion, it's okay. You won't even get a slap on the wrist.
We still haven't found the organisers of the Opera House thing.
Yeah.
I don't believe that for a second.
And the police were there and they just didn't do anything.
I'm saying, but remember, the organisers of that initial protest put themselves up for media appearances the following day, all right? Which meant those people owned it as the organisers, which meant they could have been fined $22,000. They haven't been. Not once.
Yeah.
And you notice as well that there's no conversation on that leadership of those protests. It turns around and says, well, anyone who says anything terrible, go away. Well, what about the signs? OK? They have to police that behaviour as well.
Exactly.
But also, we all now know that the sentiment behind those protests is purely anti-Semitic. And it's been such a shock to see that this hatred of me, my community, Josh Frydenberg, Mark Dreyfus, business leaders, is among us. Don't you think that has been just such a shock to see that?
Well, again, I mean, when we go back to the last time Australia had to consciously deal with what's happening in the Middle East, we're going back the best part of 20 years, all right? The migrant mix is a lot different than where we were 20 years ago, but also the penchant for the police service to not offend as opposed to crack down and say, no, the joy of this country is come from anywhere, have any connection anywhere from any faith. But in this country, we don't go after people for who they are.
Well, it's on our government, because they have imported by the masses people who don't share our values. Clearly, that's what we're seeing play out in our streets.
All right, we'll see you 9 o'clock tonight, Paul, and you at 10 o'clock. Thank you both so much.
Love you,
Sharri.